Hello, and welcome to this brief introduction to Serena Release Manager version 5. In many businesses today, software can be a key differentiator. The development team has adopted agile methodologies, increasing their pace of innovation. This has just pushed the bottleneck downstream, exposing release management challenges that many companies face. Ineffective handoffs, poor visibility, too much rework, error-prone manual tasks, lack of repeatable processes, non-reusable assets, and the inability to demonstrate compliance. With Serena Release Manager version 5, we eliminate the complexities of release management by enabling companies with, first, visibility, control, and standardization of the release process through actionable release dashboards. Second, coordination and collaboration for release teams, new best practice release processes, turnovers and runbooks, environment management, and lifecycle activity feed. And third, automation of application deployments through the new deployment hub. So let's move to a brief product demonstration and highlight many of these features. What you see when you first come into Serena Release Manager version 5 is your dashboard. Each of these widgets is attached to a separate report feed. These reports can be time-based history trends or real-time data. You can tailor these report feeds to be what you want. There is also the ability to have a public report, which means that anybody who runs Serena Release Manager version 5 will have one or more pieces of information that is mandated that they see along with everybody else, and then they can customize this dashboard to be their own. Actionable insight means that you can actually drill down into the data and take action on it. So in this particular case, we've drilled down into the release train states, looking at those that are currently being planned, and we can drill down into any one of these release trains and see all of the associated information with the train and take action on any one of these items across the various levels of information that exist. So if we look at release trains, the standard view that we expect people to use is a release train timeline. What you see here is all the release trains that a company is working on or has worked on or will work on in the future. The thick bar up on top is planned. The thin bar on the bottom is actual. For each release train, we support out-of-the-box processes and divide the release train into 4 basic stages: scoping, construction, verification, and deployment. The transition between each of these stages is governed by a stage gate with its own exit criteria and approval life cycles. Interim milestones can be established to measure progress. In this case, we have a design complete milestone and a feature complete milestone within the construction stage. And you'll see that the actuals indicate that the design complete milestone was achieved before the date, thus it's green, while the feature complete milestone was late and it is red. This simple view allows you to see the status of any release train. The one up on top here, the December release, is in fact late. It's still in verification when it's expected to be in the deployment stage. On the left, you get a visual indicator of the release train owner's view of the release train status. So we have 2 trains up on top that are of state yellow and 4 or 5 that are of state green. Within each of these release trains, they have a number of application releases that belong to the train. So you can see that in this first train, we have the actual information and planned. For each of these application releases, we see immediately their status, red, yellow, green. We can drill down into any one of these application releases to better understand why they're in the state they're in. So in this case, we could drill down into the rewards and payouts version 2 release and get a better idea of why the application owner has designated this app as currently high risk of being delivered on time. Ownership is important, and we fully support role-based ownership in Release Manager version 5 based on the capabilities of Serena Business Manager. So you have information that belongs to you. You have information that belongs to the rest of the organization, and you can see what you're allowed to see. We also present a different view of release trains, and that would be a calendar-based perspective. So in this particular instance, we're looking at all release train related activities for the month of November. You can again drill down into this calendar and get the similar view of the particular release train you're interested in. Release Manager is built on top of the SBM platform used by over 1,600 companies globally. For each of these entities, release trains, application releases, approvals, turnovers, they all have their own life cycle that is out of the box and ready for you to use. But if you so choose, you can use the Composer, which is a drag and drop editor, and simply make this release, this life cycle, this workflow, your own. Within each release train are a number of application releases. So we have a similar view for application releases in that you can see all application releases on this timeline view. Much like release trains, this timeline view has actual versus planned. It has stage gate transitions, and it has interim milestones. These application releases, you can see here, red, yellow, green status, as we saw before on the release train. Within each of these application releases, you can expand to look at the associated information with that particular application release. In this case, we're showing the feeds that show the different deployments of this application release as it's moving along the path to production. So we see that it's been deployed a number of times to test environment 1, as well as into user acceptance test environment number 2. And you can similarly drill down into that information to see more detail. Much like release trains, people will own application releases. They certainly have the ability to see all application releases, and much like release trains, we have a calendar view that shows, for, in this particular instance, a monthly view of all the release trains that are in flight. In this case, those that are being planned and executed. This calendar view you can filter to turn on and off information that you want to see. So in this particular case, we might choose to look at all application releases that are currently designated high risk status red, and you can drill down into that application release and in fact see more information about it. You can look at schedules and dependencies, you can look at milestones, you can look at all of the times that this application release was moved into an environment. Importantly, you can also see the associated business requests. So these might come from your ITSM system, whether it's from Serena or from a third party, as well as you can see the associated development tasks. These would be those enhancements and backlogs that you manage that you are satisfying or delivering with this particular release version 2 of, in this instance, the rewards and payouts application. With any of these entries in Serena Release Manager, you can have a whole social collaboration on that particular topic. You can post a question or a comment, attach files, images, URL locations. You can ask an expert. You can follow and contribute to any one of these discussions. Let's look at turnovers for a moment. Turnovers are essentially the delivery of software to an environment through a set of instructions. So what you'll see in this particular instance is not only do you have the turnovers that you're responsible for, but you might be able to see a broader set of turnovers that other teams or people are using to move software through the path to production and into production. In this particular instance, we are looking at a calendar of turnovers, and this calendar shows all turnover related activities of software into an environment that you are allowed to see. So in this instance, we're allowed to see turnovers into test environment 1 and test environment 2, user acceptance test environment number 2, and a production environment. You can turn on and off different calendar feeds and look at particular instances of information. Another important point here is that we have two types of turnovers. We have an application release turnover, so this would be typically what you would experience as an individual application team works on an app, moves it through the various test or QA phases, moves it into pre-production staging, and then we have a release train level turnover, which basically is an action upon a collection of applications as they move, for example, into production. We can drill down into this calendar of information and see anything about it. So if we look into this calendar and drill down into a specific turnover, we can see a couple of things related to this turnover. We can see that this is a turnover for the Debt Manager release, version 2.1. We can see that it is being deployed into the User Acceptance Test Environment number 2. We can look at the deployment tasks used to move this application into the User Acceptance Test Environment 2. In this particular case, a series of manual and automated steps. We can see, in fact, that this turnover failed at step 5, where the individual responsible was to validate the servers, and she was unable to validate the servers were in the proper configuration, so she did not approve this turnover to continue forward. The automated steps are executing our deployment hub, the release automation capability within Serena Release Manager. This deployment hub can execute Serena's release automation capability itself, or can call your own homegrown deployment engine, or as well as third-party deployment tools as well. You'll notice in here also that this turnover is run sequentially through step 5, and then the next 3 steps are actually executed in parallel automatically. So in this particular instance, she would go figure out what was wrong with this server and revalidate that they were properly configured, and then say we're okay to proceed. You would hit retry and basically continue where you left off. An important aspect that we've included in version 5 is you might have a particular step that you need to re-execute as you retry your turnover. So in this particular case, we have create database and populate demo data. This might be transient in nature, so you could simply choose to include that step as you retry the turnover again, and it would execute that step and then continue forward with the remaining execution, calling the deployment hub on the automated steps to drive that deployment. Let's take a brief look at environments. So environments are the locations where you would deploy software to. So we have a calendar view, and much like the other artifacts, we have ownership as well. This calendar view you can drill down into, and you can see for a particular environment more information associated with that environment. In this particular instance, you see activities that have been accepted. You see a pending request. So a team, the ads and sponsors at team, is requesting 2 days of access to this environment. And we see that there is a request for access that's been denied, probably because that there was planned maintenance occurring during that period of time. You can, for example, schedule or request access to this environment. So in this case, test environment number 1. We will request access during the period of time when maintenance is scheduled, and notice what happens at the bottom of the form here. So as soon as we pick conflicting dates, we are told, in fact, that there is a potential conflict with the time that we're requesting access to a test environment number 1 and what is actually going on. So in this instance, if we were the application we were requesting access for to this test environment was of high urgency, we might in fact be able to delete the current planned maintenance or move it to a more appropriate time, thus granting access to this environment for the urgent app to to run its tests. So let's take a look at reports. There's a number of reports that you can use that are out of the box. We have over 45 reports for Serena Release Manager version 5, and you can see these reports listed here. You can have your own reports that you build, as well as reports that come from other applications built on SPM. So if we look at my reports, one of the important things that you can do is schedule a report. Maybe your manager wants a weekly update on a particular topic, so you could schedule this to be delivered to him or her at midnight every Thursday. If you need a report that does not exist, they are quite easy to construct. So we have a report wizard builder here that you can see. You select the different types of reports you might want, and then you would build the report, preview the report, save it, possibly share it with your team members, and plug it into your dashboard. So in summary, we have shown you Serena Release Manager version 5 at a very high level. If you have more questions, please visit serena.com/release. Thank you for your time.